There's been a great deal of focus on how politicians responded to the California shootings, with many critics saying tweets of prayers won't do anything to stop more attacks. The public's frustration comes after repeated mass shootings in this country. From 2000 to 2006, the FBI reported 45 incidents. Then over the next 7 years, that number doubled, more than doubled. 60% of those shootings ended before officers arrived. Jeffrey Butts is here. He's the director of the Research and Evaluation Center at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. He joins us now. A lot of the talk has been about California being one of the states with the most strict gun control laws. Does that make a difference in cases like this?
Well, strict is a very relative concept. We have very few rigorous gun controls, and the term gun control is too general to mean anything practical. So we need to get down to the point at which we're talking about effective, direct regulatory matters that can help reduce the chances of this kind of incident.
You're a numbers guy. You've been studying these statistics. It seems like violence is on the rise in this country. Is it, in fact?
It's actually not. The violence is down by about 50% since 20 years ago. If you look at the overall numbers, your chances of being a victim of a homicide or a violent crime are half what they were just 20 years ago.
Now, we've been talking about how the mass shootings, though, has been on the increase in the past 7 years. How many of these are related to Islamic terrorism?
First of all, the number of mass shootings, even though it's very concerning and we react strongly to every incident, are low compared to the overall violence rate. About 100 people a day are killed with guns in the United States. And overall, the level of mass shootings contributes very little to that.
And are homicide rates in America higher than around the world?
Homicide rates are not higher than they are around the world. Some Latin American countries, for example, have homicide rates that are 2-3 times ours. Gun violence rates we are by far number one. So when we kill each other, we use guns. In other countries, they use different methods. Dr.
Butts, if you could hold on for a second. We want to go to the Carly Fiorina sound right now to hear what some of the politicians are saying about this.
Despite the headline in the daily news, the first thing I did was say a prayer. Say a prayer for those who've been murdered, say a prayer for their families, say a prayer for those who are trying to recover, and say a prayer especially as well for our first responders. And then we need to ask some tough questions.
For people to mock religion, to mock prayer, and then to act as if there's some law that's going to fix this, you know, there may well be, but it may not be a gun control law. It may well be a law that says we shouldn't admit people to this country from certain parts of the world with their intent on killing us.
You've looked at the real instances over the years. What do you think should be done to try to lessen this?
Well, it's nice that people feel compassion, and when they say they're praying, I think that means they feel the anguish and they're feeling compassion. But we also need actual policies. And I would agree with Senator Rand that the most effective policies may not be directly targeted on gun control. I think if you look across the spectrum of violent behavior, most violent acts are committed by people who aren't sufficiently tied into family structure and community, or they're motivated by some other kinds of hate. So the whole phenomenon of terrorism is someone motivated to behave violently because they think they have a higher order calling. And we need to address that.
And there's also the issue that has been bandied about a lot is the mentally ill and their ease of getting access to guns.
Yeah, I think the mental health discussion is often used as a diversionary tactic by people who don't want to address gun violence. And it's true, it's relevant, and we should have a good mental health structure in this country, and we do not. But that's not an answer to all gun violence, because not all people are mentally ill that commit drastic acts of violence.
Looking at the data of these mass shootings over the years, I'm thinking about something that one of the other candidates, Dr. Ben Carson, said after a mass shooting. He said, well, it wouldn't have happened to me because I would have attacked the attackers. In reality, when this is going on, what are people experiencing? What are they able to do in that kind of a circumstance?
Yeah, everyone's tough in a hypothetical scenario. I think most people in these situations immediately try to get cover. They try to protect each other. You hear all kinds of stories about people watching out for each other and warning their friends and other people in the environment. I don't think it's reasonable to expect that people can react violently immediately to a violent assault.
What about having an armed populace, like has been suggested by so many of candidates and other people?
We do have an armed populace, and that's why we have more gun homicides than anyone else in the world, because so many people are walking around with firearms.
All right. Dr. Jeffrey Butts, thank you so much.
You're welcome.